nothing scares a herd more than, so if you're a cattle rancher, your biggest asset is your cattle, right? You got to protect your herd. But the biggest risk to them are they're the rustlers, they're in the storms, right? So these predators, the predators are the people who are trying to steal your deal, right? And this might often be misconceptions, right? And you can use your brand to overcome this stuff. So if you're a wholesaler, there's a lot of misconceptions around wholesaling, right? So if you guys can build content around kind of like we do, frequently asked questions and tutorials around wholesaling to teach people about it, right? That's really the predators. When it comes to, and that could be property management, right? That could be like, oh, you guys are just slumlords. So we build videos and content showing the quality of our product. When it comes to our fix and flipping company, there's plenty of people out there who have a lot of negative things to say about contractors, right? So when it comes to that, we show our flips. We show it from start to when we get everything down, to when we finish it out, so people can see exactly what we do, right? So rustlers, these are the people who are trying to steal your deal or maybe steal the profitability from your deal, right? So this could be other wholesalers. Often this could be agents. Agents are maybe the ones that are taking away profitability from your deal. This could be the city. This could be code enforcement, other factors that impact you. One of the big things you can use with your content, your brand, is really kind of controlling that narrative and teaching the people and showing, hey, you know what, this is actually what we're doing on this deal, or this is how the city can be involved, but you can use your brand to really educate them. The last thing is the storms. So storms can really inhibit your progress. These are some of the factors everybody can't control, right? This could be interest rates, right? This could be the market. Where I really relate this to is in our dispositions and raising private money. And everybody could probably relate to that in the past year with what's happening in the market. But what we try to do with our brand is we try to bring in like other industry professionals, other people from across the country, maybe local market agents and professionals that know the market, and bring them in, record content with them. And that way we can really kind of, again, I said this again, control the narrative of what our investors are thinking or what our buyers might be thinking. And that way they can have the confidence to keep investing just like we do. So now that we've kind of talked about how to, like the risk and the things that we need to control, let's talk about how you guys can actually, first off, you got to know your role when it comes to marketing and building a brand. So the first thing is capturing the message, right? You guys, that is your number one job as the business owner, is you capturing the message. No one else can capture the message of your brand like yourself. These next couple of things are things you can delegate. I highly recommend you delegate the editing and the distributing of the content. But guys, one of the keys here is this gap, the gap between capturing to editing, really from capturing to distribution. If you could shrink that gap, that helps you get your content out in real time to where you're being consistent. You're talking about what's relevant in today's market. Another ranching analogy, when you go to tie up the calf or the cattle, you do what's called 2 loops and a hooey. So you wrap them up real tight, and then you put a loop. The hooey's the loop, right? The loop is, that way you can pull that loop quickly. If you guys know how to tie knots, you can relate to this. When you pull out the hooey, it releases the calf, right? So it's all about you being able to capture the message quickly, give it off to your team or give it off to somebody to capture it, or to edit it and to produce it, and then pull out that loop and let it go, right? And get that out to your audience. The other thing is just how you guys we try to, when we record content, we try to use it in multiple platforms, right? So I'll just show you my post from last Friday. And this was inspired by a question I get all the time. Why do you invest in Wyoming? I got it today. Why Wyoming, right? So what we did is I just created it on Instagram. Again, I had print. This is just the writing of hey, why do I invest in Wyoming? It kind of looks like a Twitter post. But the other thing is I'll go do and I'll talk about it. I'll record a quick video of me talking about why Wyoming, right? And from there, I can also have my team, my digital team can go make a 1-page PDF that I can share with other investors. We have an email list that I'll share with why Wyoming, right? But each one of these pieces of content that I create, I try to at least 10x it to where I can, again, distribute it in all the different marketing channels, from Instagram to Facebook to TikTok to Twitter, whatever you want to call it, to YouTube. I try to get out on all those different platforms so I can hit people in many different ways. That same piece of content that we recorded, we want to have a maximum amount of impact. So, anybody in here, who knows how to ride a horse? Anybody? Maybe a couple people can ride a horse, right? If you don't know, yeah. Well, yeah, when you probably rode that horse the first time, what was it like? Were you riding the horse, or was it pretty much, or were you controlling it, or was it?
It was just going.
It was just going, right? Yeah, so you don't quite know what you're doing, right? And if you've ever gotten bucked off, the only way to do it is you gotta get right back on, right? Just get back on the horse. So when it comes to this content, guys, it's not gonna be easy, but you gotta keep getting back on the horse. So I wanna kind of share how I've done that. So 6 years ago is when I first kind of got into this. I read Gary Vee's book. That was probably my first inspiration to start creating content. But at that time, it was me trying to record the content, me coming back and trying to edit it in iMovie, and then trying to produce it. And it was not consistent and it wasn't very effective, right? So my first step was, well, first off, I knew immediately as soon as I edited my first video, I'm like, this is not a good use of my time. This is taking me hours and I'm still not happy. It's so frustrating, right? So my first hire was actually my COO in the back, Clint. I needed to find an editor or somebody who could help me produce videos. So I hired him. And he really helped me start building more, like creating more content, helping with the thoughts and like what we should produce. So he was great, right? But eventually I'm like, wow, well, first off, he started elevating within my company and I had to hire somebody else for that. And also I wanted to be more cost effective. So the next step was to find a virtual assistant. So initially we went to Canada, found a virtual assistant in Canada. He was okay, but we at least delegated an offer to my guy that was paying quite a bit. I was paying him way too much to be doing video editing, right? So then the next step was we found a guy in the Philippines. And he's been great to where now we can hand it to him, he can edit it. But then there's the last piece, right? I was doing all that, but I wasn't distributing it. And I wasn't consistent, right? If you guys hear anything, you guys have probably heard that before when it comes to content and branding, be consistent. But I wasn't able to be consistent myself and still run my business, right? I was trying to run the business and do all of that. But when I delegated off the distribution, we just used some of our virtual assistants we had in-house. And we got them in charge of doing the distribution. So we could work all three phases, right? So I took 6 years. It took a while to get it going. It took me a while, it took a lot of ups and downs, but I just kept after it, kept doing it, and iterating. And it's now today, the big benefit is now I have leads coming to me, right? So back to the cattle ranch, when you're trying to round up all those cattle, wouldn't it be nice if all the cattle would just come to you, right? Versus you having to go ride horses, drive trucks miles and miles to bring all these cattle in. What if the cattle came to you? So now that I've taken the time to build my brand and invested all this time and money and resources, now the leads start to come to me, right? So now when it comes to raising private capital, 4 or 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, like I was trying to have these conversations. I was here a year ago asking Jeremiah, how do I raise private money? How do I go find these guys, right? But now, because I've created all this content, these people come to me. So a lot of people don't know, I worked in oil and gas for 12 years as an engineer, and now it's been such a great pipeline for me to raise private money because, and it's not as awkward, right? I don't have to go out there and say, hey, do you want to invest? Because I put out all this content and I'm just friends with these people on Facebook, LinkedIn, they see it. And now it's so cool now when they send me a direct message that, hey, man, how do I get involved? I like what you're doing. How do I get involved? You know? So that's the residual, that's the things that start happening. When it comes to turnkey buyers and investors, again, same thing as CG. One of my asks a year ago was, hey, how do I find more turnkey buyers? And it's just been hard for me in Wyoming. The way it's worked is doing my content, doing my branding. So now I've got buyers that are like, man, wow, looks like you're doing well in Wyoming. How do we, oh, wow, you guys are getting that much cash flow on your deals? How are you guys doing it? So that's creating all those opportunities. Even cool thing is too, like just different like pro athletes and musicians. So I'll try to invite these people on my podcast. And it's just a fun dialogue, fun conversation. But often these guys become private money lenders or they become buyers. But they see my content. I mean, the perfect example is that Mark Gonzacha played for the 49ers, played in the Super Bowl. He's actually played at the University of Wyoming. Would have never thought that I could like reach out to that guy and have a conversation, or him want to have a conversation with me. But he's like, yeah, I want to come on your podcast. I want to learn more about real estate because he can see what I'm doing. He sees it on my Instagram. One last example to share this. So I haven't lived in Laramie, Wyoming, which is where the big part of our portfolio is, for like 12 years. And I've always kind of felt like an outsider because I don't live there. I live in Houston. So if you guys don't know me, I live in Houston and invest in Wyoming. So I always kind of felt like an outsider, even though I owned probably more property than most people, probably anybody in the town. But I felt like an outsider until it was literally like 2 weeks ago. I had one of the major like land developer guys in town. He calls me, he's like, hey, so we need to talk. I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever he wants. Whatever what Dave wants. So Dave gets on the phone with me. Dave's like, Casey, I've been watching your content. I like what you're doing. I need your help. We need to think bigger in Laramie. I've got all these development project ideas, but I need you to help me raise the money and do all this. And that's when I was like, oh man, this is awesome. All this is paying off to where this guy feels compelled to reach out to me and want to do this. So anyway, I just want to show you guys examples of if you invest in the time, it pays off. It doesn't pay off immediately, but it pays off. Okay, so now let's talk about how to go from 0 to 1, right? How do you go from a Greenhorn to a Wrangler? So going 0 to 1, I'm gonna bring it back in those 3 steps we talked about earlier. You gotta capture the content. So what does that look like, capturing the content? That could be just simply using your iPhone, guys. If you haven't heard that yet, this iPhone can capture the quality in a lot of what you need, right? Just using your iPhone. But then it comes, and you can also invest in a camera, a nice camera like we got in the back that Clint's got, and a microphone. But simply doing that can get you started. But once again, you want to delegate after the capture the content. So that's where the fork in the road comes. So you can either keep this in-house, all the editing and production and distribution, or you can go find a digital marketing company. But each one of you guys is going to have to answer that for yourself. But that's really the key, is getting from the production to going in here. But I bet all you guys would love to have a process where you could capture it, edit it, and distribute it. How awesome would that be? Well, a quick tip for you guys is Riverside. So if you guys haven't used Riverside, it's very similar to Zoom. So, and this is something all you guys can do. So the way I do it is I invite people on my podcast. I'll just invite other CG members just to have a chat. And we'll get on Riverside and we record it. And Riverside records it in very high definition audio and quality. But also sometimes the guys I'll talk to are just talking on their cell phone, and that works just fine. But what happens is my virtual assistant is able to get into Riverside. He can download it and edit it right within that same program. So literally all I do is I get on and I do those calls, and then they get in, they edit it, and then there goes off my production. It's like literally, and this is something every single one of you guys can do, is just go put in a 30-minute meeting with another CG member and go talk to them, because that's the easiest way to create content. It's just talking about what you guys normally talk about. And that stuff's interesting. You might not feel like it is, but that turns out to be some of the best content. So that's one really quick tip that you guys can do to go to 0 to 1. The other one is try to find platforms and places you can talk about what you're doing, right? And I encourage you guys to do this in your local communities. What we do is often we'll go up to Wyoming, and whenever in Wyoming, I just try to go book as many speaking engagements as I can. And this could be as simple as just, I'll give you this one example that's great and it's easy. We just went and booked a pizza place, and we found a room, and there's no cost to it. In this particular time, we didn't have a big audience. We didn't have, we'd done them actually every night for 4 nights across. We did like a little City of Wyoming tour. It was pretty fun. But one of our spots, we had only 2 people show up. And you might think, oh man, all that time and effort for 2 people to show up. But I did exactly what I'm doing now, is I had the camera rolling and had the microphone, and we were capturing that content. And when I go distribute that to YouTube or Reels, they're not gonna know there's 2 people there. They're gonna see me up there talking about something that I'm passionate about. So I think that's something that each one of you guys could do. You might not be supernatural at first, but pick something that you can talk about and just give those opportunities. Because then once you record that, now my content team, again, just like I use that Riverside app to go record stuff. Now I've got all that content. I can quickly get it to my editing team and start producing all that. So a couple of different examples how to go 0 to 1. The last thing is here, this is from Ty Murray. Ty Murray is one of the best bull riders of all time. His quote is, "I don't care about going down in history as a great bull rider or bronc rider. I hope people remember me as a great cowboy." So the way this ties into you guys is, you don't need to go make this big elaborate plan for your brand. You don't need to create this big process and this big system and all these different things to be your brand. Just be yourself. All you guys need to do is go out and record what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. You guys, here's the thing, you guys are all part of Collective Genius. You guys wouldn't be here if you weren't doing things at a high level. And what you're doing is interesting. And all you need to do is capture on a daily cadence. Again, another example is if I try to stop, during my day, I'll get off a call with a seller or get off the call with an investor. And I try to recap that. I literally just pull out my phone and I recap it on my story, and I just put it on my story. And then from my story, my editing team can go in and pull it down, and they can edit that. They can turn that into a reel, or they can even turn that into a long YouTube form video. But again, I'm just talking about what I'm doing. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I'm not trying to create this big elaborate brand. Just be you guys. You'd be surprised. And the last thing is my big give, and I really liked it this morning about, hey, how do we give you guys, how can I give you something to go 0 to 1? The biggest thing is, guys, if you scan that QR code, that's gonna take you to my Instagram page. I want you to follow me. If you don't have Instagram, first off, and you wanna be building a brand and doing stuff, I would highly suggest creating an account. And if you don't have it, you can still reach out. But from there, reach out, send me a direct message. What I wanna do is I wanna book 30 minutes with you guys and do exactly what I talked about. Let's book 30 minutes, let's talk about whatever you wanna talk about. We can even just answer questions for today if you didn't get them answered. But let's get on that and let's record some content. And then what my team can do is they can take down that content and they can download it, and then I'll go distribute it. Because my team's already doing it, right? But now I can go share it with you, and now you've got the first piece of content that you can go distribute, and we can go collaborate on it, right? Because it all comes back to the beginning of the presentation when we talked about collaboration, right? If we all work together, we're bringing all our cattle, we're all working together to bring them back to here. If you guys help each other in doing your branding, it's gonna make a big impact. So I encourage you guys to reach out. Oh, last thing is, and if we don't do it, if you don't book a meeting, I'm here for the next 3 days. I would love to grab you in a breakout room. Maybe it's on chill day and I've got my videographer, got the camera. We can, the even better way to record content is face-to-face, right? So if you guys, I would love, please reach out. I'd love to pull you apart, pull you out of, either way, just take 5 minutes. We can shoot some content and then my team can go produce it and hopefully help you get that first step and get you guys on your way.
So I'm gonna break all rule and ask a question. How long have you been doing this? Content, like going on Instagram?
So 6 years ago, I started actually trying to do it, but I wasn't doing it. I mean, actually effectively doing it. What do you think, Clint? About a year and a half where I'm actually effectively doing it consistently. So a year and a half.
What do you think the value in that is? If you could quantify, put a number on it.
Ooh, like a dollar number?
Yeah.
And followers, man. And it's not that, it's not the followers, it's not the shares, it's not the likes. It's the, when I went through that one slide and gave a bunch of examples of people that are reaching out, it's very hard to quantify. And eventually I'm gonna need to start tracking it, but to me, it's a long game. It's the connections, honestly.
Yeah.
It's the people that reach out.
If you just had to pull a number, an arbitrary number.
Arbitrary.
Be very conservative.
Be conservative. Yeah, the return I've got on it, I mean, even the partnerships, yeah, I mean, at least 100,000. I mean, but it's gonna be millions at some point down the road because of all the connections and all the people that wanna now collaborate and work with me.
Yeah, I agree. And the point I wanted to make is, you don't have a very big Instagram following, and that's okay. Neither do I. But I went all in on content 12 months ago, and my number's bigger than yours. Yeah, for sure. No, I'm just saying, like I can quantify, because I actually sell something that I can quantify. But the importance of building your brand through social media, like it is, if I have one regret that I can place on the past 10 years of my business is that I didn't start 10 years ago. So the single biggest thing. So I just want to kind of thank you. Great job.